Therefore, we must leap over the present and create a future that is an improved version of the past. And fashion.
Why people are concerned, both here and around the world. But what I've also said is that the deal that we struck, this interim deal, brought about by the tough sanctions regime that we put together, offers us our best opportunity to solve
it. And this is why the greatest designers are almost always the biggest dreamers and rebels and renegades. This has been the case throughout history, all the way back to the year 300 BC, when a 13-year-old became the king of a remote, very poor.
And they are making a difference by shared best practices. Bike shares, many of you have heard of it, started 20, 30 years ago in Latin America. Now it's in hundreds of cities around the world. Pedestrian zones, congestion fees, emission limits in cities like California cities have. There's lots and lots that cities can do even when open.
Are all a direct result of me playing with your garbage. Play is a key part of my scientific practice. It's how I train my mind to be unconventional and to be creative and to decide to make human apple ears. So the next time any of you are looking at some old
soon, she said, no, those are the lights of Key West. It was 15 more hours, which for most swimmers would be a long time. You have no idea how many 15-hour training swims I had done. So here.
So if some of you are worrying now that you don't work at a Pixar or you don't work at a Google, I want to tell you there's still hope. We studied many organizations that were really not organizations you think of as ones where a lot of innovation happens. We studied a general counsel in a pharmaceutical company who had to figure out how to get the outside lawyers, 19 competitors, to
Greenland are one of the largest contributing factors to rising sea levels, which have already begun to drown some of our world's lowest-lying islands. 1 year after my trip to Greenland, I visited the Maldives, the lowest and flattest country in the entire world. While I was there, I collected
work outside the home and be just as committed to their careers as they are. I was talking, give you an illustration of this change. Some of you may remember this. When I was a lot younger, I remember there was a riddle that was posed to us, and some of you may wince to remember this riddle. This riddle went something like this. A man.
And don't console yourself that you are the 99%. If you live near a Whole Foods, if no one in your family serves in the military, if you're paid by the year, not the hour, if most...
Are they really superior because they have bigger brains? That was a reasonable hypothesis to have. She decided that this is an assumption which we can test. And that's where she had this really ingenious idea to take head measurements of a group of people who were, in fact, anatomists meeting at a conference in Dublin. And she found
I also have aspects of my set that are totally euphoric, and it's kind of even going in a more kind of euphoric direction as I've expanded to include Matt and Colin in the band. But, just if promoters know that it's like a time in the night when people really just need to be like slapped in the face with a 4/4, then they're probably not going to want to listen to me doing brief.
A traditional bank card where 75% of their revenues are generated by spread. So our balance...
in fact, you don't charge interest normally.
Except on our on our revolving credit product, and we do have
what's the name of that?
We have a range of card products. And one of the things that we have done dramatically since
most of them are not economists, and most of them are concerned with their corporation's own bottom line and with their own salary. So we've created a corporate system in the United States where
technical theater classes, either way, are going to give you the basis for how to work in a group. Because in theater, you have the directors, and you have the designers, and then you have their keys that help build all the stuff. So you have to understand how to work in a team, and how decisions you make can affect the rest of the members of the team.
I don't really know what We Are the World accomplished. I'm sure it accomplished some things, but it seemed more just like this odd excuse for a bunch of public figures to get together in a room and, I don't know, almost like spit in the ocean of unconquerable, terrible circumstance.
Whether it was in response to Haiti or in response
the pressure, there are bright lights and a camera in your face, kind of like this. And the evaluators have been trained to give you discouraging nonverbal feedback, like this.
Wind farms and solar plants that are going to double the renewable energy we can generate in this country. These are the jobs building the future. For example, I want to share with you one new development made possible by the clean energy incentives that we've launched. This month, in the Mojave Desert, a company called Bright Source plans to break ground on a revolution.
One of the things we're interested in is understanding what are the capabilities of quantum information processing, what would we be able to do when we build quantum computers, and we'd like to understand whether we can really build scalable systems that could solve hard problems. And I think that's already.
But sometimes books only have one or two things that are worth reading. In fact, most books only have that. So I have flipped through the pages one time. I like to go through 3 times. First time I read the table of contents, the back. The second time, go a little faster. The third time, I just focus on one chapter. See yourself like a gold miner, just looking for that one nugget. Then put it back on the shelf. The average American buys
or broadcasts or listen to radio shows where people are talking about an awakening. And this part serves two purposes. One, it tells you you're not crazy. It tells you that you're not making it up, that other people are seeking the same deeper answers,
are looking where the stone has already been unturned.
Can there be, honestly speaking, can there be an assault on cancer without an assault or a war on carcinogens?
Let's talk about cancer prevention, which is really what you're saying, more broadly.
We understand that many of our citizens are frustrated by the pace of globalization and feel they're not experiencing the benefits of international trade. We both believe this is an issue that we as G20 leaders cannot afford to ignore. Instead, we must all work together to spur economic growth, to boost free trade and build a fairer economy that
It's this idea that when we are at our most creative, we aren't even really creating. We are channeling. We are transcribing. We are conduits for something larger than ourselves to erupt, to express itself through us. We become a medium. We become an
nothing if you don't believe you're worthy of it. You are. Start building. You will be blown away by where this life can take you, where you can end up. Your goals take shape the minute they enter your brain. Never has there been such a powerful tool as the human mind. The same
strive to author these moments, but a lot of times they are right there for the taking, if only we were aware enough to open our eyes and plug in.
You are worried because you worry because you worry. That is a vicious circle. So now, can you...
And if those new people happen to be people that are just kind of opinionated and feel cheated because they've come to see something that's contemporary dance and they weren't expecting it, it would be nice to sort of to still grab hold of these people and say, actually, you know.
Worldwide, about 17 million women are living with HIV. We know that when these women become pregnant, they can transfer the virus to their baby. We also know in the absence of therapy, half those babies will not survive until the age of 2. But we know that antiretroviral therapy can virtually guarantee that she will not transmit the virus to the baby. So what do? Well, a one-size-fits-all approach, kind of like that blast of chemo, would mean we test and treat every pregnant woman in the world. That would do the job. But it's just not practical. So instead, we target those areas where HIV rates are the highest. We know in certain countries in sub-Saharan Africa, we can test and treat pregnant women where rates are highest. This precision approach to a public
our history. There are an infinite number of histories that we could have had, and we only get one, and wow, did we ever get a good one. Dinosaurs like Dreadnoughtus were real. Sea monsters like the mosasaur were real. Dragonflies with a wingspan of an eagle and pillbugs.
Data that are then cryptographically linked together and secured. This creates an immutable, unforgeable record of all of the transactions across this network. This record is replicated on every computer that uses the network.
And I said, why are we doing breath-holding exercises? And my coach looked at me and he said, Melody, that was not a breath-holding exercise. That drill was to make you comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's how most of us spend our days. If we can learn to...
And there are unseen creatures living all over your body, including mites that spend their entire lives dwelling on your eyelashes, crawling over your skin at night. Can you guess what this is? Shark skin. A caterpillar.
Is that we, the taxpayers, are not getting what we pay for. Because 94% of federal IT projects are over budget or behind schedule. 94%. For those of you keeping score, yes, the number 94 is very close to 100.
So how are we going to do it? How are we going to do it together? I got to have some action items, not just for you, but for me. Number one, action item number one. Remember, it's not good enough just to tolerate people who disagree. It's not good enough. We have to remember that we...
So anytime that you are hunkered down in that feeling of despair, anytime that you may ever doubt yourself or believe for a second that there was a before and after to your potential in this world, I'm standing here today to tell you that your potential is timeless. And will you do this with me now? As I leave here, will you go?
Those traits is that they're primarily not about how smart you are or about how much you know.
In fact, they don't correlate very much with IQ at all. They're about how you feel.
Wow. And the regions are as small as Whitewater, Wisconsin, and as large as the state of Alaska Source Link, and big cities like Dallas, Source Link is in Dallas, and small cities like
About 200,000 service members are becoming veterans every single year. And America's going to have to be there for you for a lifetime in 5 important ways. Number 1, we have to keep fighting for the
communities that are, most impoverished and have been for 30 years. So I think we've got to address really systemic generational poverty differently. We still have to lift up working people.
And there are people who are trying to impede progress, but the good news is that the general trajectory of humanity is that the folks who've been trying to make progress have outnumbered those who haven't. And over time, things just get a little bit better.
You know that kids are going to say exactly what they think. So we're standing in line waiting to pay, and she says, and I swear she was shouting, "Look, Mommy, her skin is like chocolate." She's pointing to a block.
You see how you're a key part of a solution and not a problem. But this comes with a serious risk. Because even if it's 3 a.m. and it starts to rain, you're likely to run outside in your underwear just to see your basins and tanks fill up with water. And when you see all that accumulating in abundance, you're going to take these here buns.
Wow, thank you. I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered on Aboriginal land and recognise the strength, resilience and capacity of the Noongar people in this land. We pay our respects to them and their cultures and to elders both past and present. Good afternoon, Vice-Chancellor.
On either side, there are garlands of large, heavy fruit. And when we look carefully at the fruit, we can see that it casts shadows on the picture, as if the painting were behind it, as if the garlands were three-dimensional objects.
And this is huge because it turns out that ideas are just as real as the neurons they inhabit, as James Gleick tells us. A new kingdom rises above the biosphere. The denizens of this kingdom are ideas, because ideas have retained some of the properties of organisms, it turns out. They leap from brain.
We saw earlier that few poor people are consistently poor over a 4-year period, maybe 3%. Well, 2/3 of that group have one or more disability. Lesson 7 is that disability must be foregrounded in our thinking about
years old, and plants and herbs that are a gift from Mother Nature.
Because we all know that those are not safe places to live, right? The only trick is that you've got to identify the best, worthiest thing that you love most, and then build your house right on top of it and don't budge from it.
This is the first time 5 blinded vets are kayaking down the Grand Canyon.
I stare into a still, dark world, and that can make you want to be
Thanks. These questions are very confronting, right? These questions are basically, I'm sort of punching you in the heart in a loving way and saying, this is your life. you have to be responsible. If you don't want to answer the
They are life. Knowing that time is the most valuable thing we have, and it only moves forwards. This is your life. Know it while you have it.
Workers are the most important labor force on the streets of the city for 3 reasons. They are the first guardians of public health. If they're not taking away trash efficiently and effectively, it's to spill out.
My first memories are from the boat. The steady beat of the engine, the bow dipping into each wave, the vast and empty horizon. I don't remember the pirates who came many times but were bluffed by the bravado of the men on our boat.
An existential threat. I mean, these are aggressive statements, and so you're seeing people.
Increases of my salary are going to work. I think that in the future my salary might be structured differently because my job has a sales focus to it. I do have a little bit of included in my salary of $42,000.
And what you are generations, therefore, is to pass all of this on to the next generation. So you're not to think of yourself simply as an
the political and media system, that there are things you can't really do?
Well, American leadership, in part, comes out of our can-do spirit. We're the largest, most powerful country on earth. As I said previously in speeches, one problem.
New York mayors are considering that idea of how you can actually constitute a global parliament of mayors. And I love that idea because a parliament of mayors is a parliament of citizens, and a parliament of citizens is a parliament of us, of you and of me. If ever there were
architect, I'm creating the space where people are willing and able to share and combine their talents and passions. So if some of you are worrying now that you don't work at a Pixar or you don't work at a Google, I want to tell you there's still hope. We studied many organizations that were really not organizations you think of as ones where a lot of innovation
are developing incredible Internet of Things technologies to fulfill Florence Nightingale's dream of improving healthcare in countries where more people now have access to cell phones than to clean running water. And among them is Arthur Zhang. He's a young Cameroonian design engineer who has adapted.
So the next time any of you are looking at some old, broken down, malfunctioning piece of crap technology, I want you to think of me, because I want it. So seriously, please find any way to get in touch with me, and let's see what we can build.
When people are following your work, and like you said, you know, like what is maybe singing is a very vulnerable thing for you, but
yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. I think there's a lot of factors that went into that. I mean, you know, one of them is just like, you know, what I was interested in and investigating kind of like pushed me, especially when I started, you know, from when movement came out to today. I feel like people's have shifted their perspective. People are more open to things. I feel like, you know, genres are more smashed together. I feel like pop isn't as dirty of a word as it was several years ago. It's funny, I was at Unsound a couple of things. I feel like, you know, genres are more smashed together. I feel like pop isn't as dirty of a word as it was several years ago. It's funny, I was at Unsound a couple weeks ago, and it's like everyone was smiling and dancing. Not that people weren't smiling at Unsound 3 years ago, but it was definitely more like this kind of thing. And this year it was more
Americans. Yeah, there are several startling statements in your report. This is one of them. Our current tax system encourages multinationals to invest abroad and create jobs abroad, as you just said. And yet, these are people who defend the
physical benefits of oxytocin are enhanced by social contact and social support. So when you reach out to others under stress, either to seek support or to help someone else, you release more of this hormone, your stress response becomes healthier, and you actually recover faster.
Next few minutes, I'm going to show you how mentors are more powerful than you can possibly imagine in their ability to transform your life. It's interesting that I'm here in Luxembourg because my grandmother was born not too far from here in Berlin, Germany. She's 96 years old, by the way.
Up that I think a lot of, you know, teenagers are fresh out of high school. It's a very vulnerable time, and I had always been very, very shy in my lifetime. I couldn't make eye contact with people. I have a very soft-spoken voice.
Really bringing forward who you are. If you're coming from your ego self, you're coming from a self that you manufactured in order to survive the gauntlet of life, and it's not a
tradition and habit than we are with a better way of doing things.
Right. Well, it was out of California that Congressman Waxman, in collaboration with Massachusetts Congressman Ed Markey, now Senator Ed Markey, developed a carbon tax platform.
Continue to swim upstream against the grain of who you are, or you surrender to that voice. It feels for some initially like it's just a free fall. It's just so threatening to the
person, doing people that I can look back and be inspired by, and be proud that I'm following in this lineage of creativity, that it's not just about me, it's about all those that came before me and all those that are going to come.
the eternal, timeless, and limitless self that we all are. And when we lose touch with that, we start looking for ourselves in the reflections of the world around us, people and approval and
who are in other classes where it's not structured as socially, where you're just like sitting in classes, and theater's really more about like talking to people and getting to know people, and I really like that. You have fun and like you learn skills that will help you in all your other classes as well. So I would say go for it, even if you're not.
Nationally. As you point out, cancer vaccines are in the future, and they could be very effective. Checkpoint blockade, which is activating your immune system to recognize those cancer cells and kill them.
not crazy. It tells you that you're not making it up, that other people are seeking the same deeper answers, deeper sense of being. So it gives you confidence. And two, it gives you direction. You actually begin to become educated.
Team. Now, when we're talking about Latino, African American, Asian minority students, you learn the history of what we've done in theater and in the arts movement. You can learn that in theater. I learned about the Federal Works Project and the vaudeville and the
and travel are so discursively entangled, so discursively intimate, that we use the same metaphors and analogies to describe the subjective experiences of each. I mean, even the term hallucination derives from the Latin term hallucinare. Lover's eye.
We have the capacity to decide at every moment who we are and where we're going, right? That is what we do. Except when you look deeper, you actually find that mind, okay, that consciousness is in fact not necessarily autonomous from the world in which it dwells. In other words, consciousness world are now allowing us to overlay digital information on top of the physical world. They have apps already that, looking through the camera in the app, you can place virtual elements into real environments. So it's this notion that you're mapping the real world. Celebrated enough in our society, because these are the people that allow us to design cities, spaces, and dwellings in which we unfold, right? And if anything, architects should work together with psychologists and with designers who understand the impact of shapes, shadows, and primates. But when we work together, we are primates that can fly. Hey guys, you want to take a look at shots of all behind the scenes, how it all comes to life? Well, then check out this episode I shot on Seeker Stories, which explores part of who we are and those that believe that technology is fundamentally unnatural and that it's a tool that's being used to ultimately destroy the world. I don't fall into that camp. I echo Kevin Kelly's ideas that stipulate that actually technology is the real
we want to put into force, that we are also negotiating effectively with the entire EU around the transatlantic trade agreement, or TTIP, and those negotiations are proceeding. And so it would...
There are some pretty common responses. Inexperience, fear, maybe hesitation, time management. These are obstacles we all have to overcome, right? Certainly they're all valid, they're all very real. And I recently took this question, spent some time with it, in terms
that everything passes, that our greatest ecstasies are imbued, are cast upon by a shadow of dread of knowing that this will pass, that this will end. Growing of focus, right? We are told that biochemically no different than doing lots and lots of cocaine. We become addicted to the other person, and we use that as a means to dismiss the authenticity of that feeling, as a way of somehow saying it is not worthy of our attention because it's a kind of that we are cognitive beings. We are creatures of mind. We have natural inquiry embedded in our bones, right? Curiosity defines us. We are the frontal lobes of the universe. But it's also said that in life, happiness comes not from finding the answers, but instead can influence perception to the degree that who and what we are is determined by where we are and where we do
well. The wallpaper matters, right? What is within is without, what is without is within. We're like the dragon eating its own tail. We're the Ouroboros, okay? We are transformed, we are reset, and we are filled with feelings of grace and gratitude. This kind of awe therapy made possible by these technological instruments such as space telescopes enlarge us, right? They bewitch us, and they, oh my God, what they do for the mind is right, are said to have this thing known as a reality distortion field, right? Steve Jobs was made famous for it. His ability to distort, to italicize perception in his coworkers, right? To inspire somebody to see the world in a new way, right? To literally engage. So when we are hallucinating, we are traveling in our heads, right? Why travel? Well, the hero's journey, right? This map that describes a departure from the ordinary, leaving normal thoughts behind, treading forth in a new environment.
The seams are showing a little more than usual in terms of some of the negotiations and jostling that takes place behind the scenes. And in fairness, you know, when delegations travel to the United States, sometimes there are issues about our security.
I mean, some people are scared it's going to create idiocracy and we're all going to be numbed into stupors, but I don't think so. I think we're all going to be hand-delivered universes that extend our imagination to spaces and places and virtualities we cannot even imagine. I think the games are going to get better. We are like Neo in the Matrix when he sees the code and he flexes his muscle and space and time warps around him. Powerful metaphor, but that's who we are. That's what we are.
When I bring up issues like human rights, you know, there are some tensions there that perhaps don't take place when President Xi meets with other leaders, but that's part of our job.
Come to wonder, are we living in a world where wonder is expressed more intensely because any time I wonder about something I can look up the answer? Or is the immediacy with which the answer is available actually dulling us into a state where we rarely experience the rapture of discovery, the rapture of the search, right? Not just the destination. Tissue, they are nonetheless a part of our cognitive arsenal. They are a part of us the same way a nest is a part of a bird and a spider's web is a part of the spider. It is our extended phenotype, it is who we are, it is our termites colony, it is temperature controlled, it is the extension of our mindedness. Yet? Are we offloading the simple questions to the noosphere and making room for new things we haven't even thought of yet? I mean, I like to think so because I'm an optimist, you know? Unlike Socrates, who felt that the invention of writing would atrophy our brains because we wouldn't have to remember anything if we wrote it down. So
be complacent. We know these terrorists are intent on destroying our way of life, and the threat in the UK remains severe. So as we drive Daesh out of one area, we must be alert to the risk that they will seek a safe haven elsewhere, and we must work internationally to defeat their ideology of hatred.
What we are, so that we may expand, transcend, transform. And there's a wonderful idea popularized by Kevin Kelly known as finite and infinite games. Now, Finite and Infinite Games is a book by religious scholar James P. Carse, and Kevin Kelly, who co-founded Wired magazine, has praised it for altering my appendages that even though they are not within our biological skin tissue, they are nonetheless a part of our cognitive arsenal. They are a part of us the same way a nest is a part of a bird and a spider's web is a part of the spider. It is our extended phenotype, it is who we are, it is our termites colony, it is temperature controlled, it is the
They are a part of us the same way a nest is a part of a bird and a spider's web is a part of the spider. It is our extended phenotype. It is who we are. It is our termites colony. It is temperature controlled. It is the extension of our mindedness. This is technology. This is the technium, the seven.
Unrealized capital gains are not taxed as long as the owner keeps them, right? Doesn't get rid of them.
That's right. And it's even worse if you're a corporation and you even realize the capital gains, but you're abroad, you don't bring the money.
Buy things.
Exactly. Americans of all income groups are entrepreneurial. You got people across our income distribution who, when there's a demand, respond to that demand. But if there's no demand, there won't be jobs. Now the problem
about artists who are also working in areas of digital activism and software development. I know I keep talking about Matt Dryhurst, but I'm going to bring it up again. He just released a piece of software called Saga that's all around kind of this idea of self-hosting and artists having their own agency.
Are down from 40% in 1943 to just below 10% in 2012. All this as some of the largest and richest corporations are now resorting to legal hanky-panky that allows them to renounce their citizenship, meaning they can
are also the countries that score highest on the happiness scale. And that's not just because they're all in Europe. Even within Europe, those countries that are more gender equal also have the highest levels of happiness. It is also good for companies.
Because the people they work with are their neighbors, because like Mayor Booker in Newark, a mayor is likely to get out of his car on the way to work and go in and pull people out of a burning building. That happened to Mayor Booker. Or intervene in a mugging in the
types. All of these designers and many more are pursuing their dreams by making the most of their newfound freedom with the discipline of professional designers and the resourcefulness of rebels and renegades, and we all stand to benefit. Thank you.
Because if you are going to embody disembodied Western rationality, you need a signifier. And what could be a better signifier of disembodied Western rationality than a garment that at one end is a noose and the other end points to the genitals?
So instead, we target those areas where HIV rates are the highest. We know in certain countries in sub-Saharan Africa, we can test and treat pregnant women where rates are highest. This precision approach to a public
and sea levels are likely to rise between 2 and 10 feet by century's end. I have dedicated my career to illuminating these projections with an accessible medium, one that moves us in a way that statistics may not.
In Africa, we can test and treat pregnant women where rates are highest. This precision approach to a public health problem has cut by nearly half HIV transmission from mothers to baby in the last 5 years.
Jeff. Computer-generated movies are really mainstream today, but it took Ed and his colleagues nearly 20 years to create the first full-length CG movie. In the 20 years hence, they've produced 14 movies, and I was recently at Pixar, and I'm here to tell you that number 15 is sure.
Now, some of my favorite examples of this are in Africa, where a new generation of designers are developing incredible Internet of Things technologies to fulfill Florence Nightingale's dream of improving healthcare in countries where more people now have access to cell phones.
that they come up with when they're working on a particular scene. So if you think about that scene in Up, where the boy hands the piece of chocolate to the bird, that 10 seconds took one animator almost 6 months to perfect. The other thing about a Pixar movie is that no part of the movie is considered
California are locked in all kinds of anger, resentment, and rivalry for number one. We heard more about who will be number one. Cities don't worry about number one. They have to work together, and they do work together. They work together in climate change.
And if any problems are spotted by the specialist there, a suitable course of treatment is recommended. And this, of course, saves many patients from making long, arduous, expensive, and often pointless journeys to those hospitals, and makes it much, much likelier that
Thus, the volumes of Earth history are incomplete and disheveled. The library is vast and magnificent, but decrepit. And it was this tattered complexity in the rock record that obscured its meaning until
that babies are dying because of a bacterial infection transferred from the mother to the baby, known as Group B streptococcus. In the absence of treatment, mom has a 7 times higher chance that her next baby will die.
Who are also pursuing extraordinary projects of their own, and I'm going to finish by looking at just a few of them. One is Peak Vision. This is a group of doctors and designers in Kenya who've developed an Internet of Things technology of their own as a portable eye examination kit.
Where people are willing and able to do the hard work of innovative problem solving. So, at this point, some of you may be wondering, well, what does that leadership really look like? Well, at Pixar, they understand that innovation takes a village.
Even within Europe, those countries that are more gender equal also have the highest levels of happiness. It is also good for companies. Research by Catalyst and others has shown conclusively that the more gender equal companies are, the better.
But the babies born during a production are listed there. And how did Bill think about what his role was? Bill said, I lead a volunteer organization. Talented people don't want to follow me anywhere. They want to co-create with me the future.
There are, of course, other technical details to the blockchain, but at its core, that's how it works. It's this public registry that stores transactions in a network and is replicated so that it's very secure and hard to tamper with.
Dinosaurs are too often portrayed as passive, lumbering platters of meat on the landscape. They're not. Big herbivores can be surly and they can be territorial. You do not want to mess with a hippo or a rhino or a water buffalo. The bison.
Data from psychologists and sociologists are quite persuasive here. I think we have the persuasive numbers, the data to prove to men that gender equality is not a zero-sum game, but a win-win. Here's what the data show. Now, when men begin,
because there are many other inspiring and enterprising designers who are also pursuing extraordinary projects of their own. And I'm going to finish by looking at just a few of them. One is Peak Vision. This is a group of doctors and designers in Kenya.
We are essentially trying to build a more awesome government for the people, by the people, today. We don't care. Thank you. Who doesn't want a more awesome government, right? We don't care about politics. We care about making government it's often the hardest things that are the most worth doing. Because if we don't do them, who will? This is on us, all of us, together, because government is not an abstract institution or a concept. Our government is us.
We're unaware of things that are too small for us to see. The electron microscope fires electrons, which creates images which can magnify things by as much as 1,000,000 times. This is the egg of a butterfly. And there are unseen creatures living all over your body.
I'm proud to say that they are live on the site today, and as the team continues to streamline more services, they will be ported over here and the old sites will be shut down. To me, this is right here in America are the very ideas, the very people who have swept our world into a radically different place than it was 2 decades ago. So, what would it look like if it was actually as easy to get student loans or veterans benefits as it is to order cat food to my house? What would it look like if there
And she said, "Your dad and I are really worried about you." And I said, "What? I mean, what could it be at this point?" And she said, "I want you to be completely honest with me. Have you been voting for Republicans?"
Sleep, or the things that people are interested in fascinate me, when instead what really was in my heart and was probably the most amazing experience I had was, again, this internal experience. I had these dreams, but living in that kind of despair, I let them begin to fade away. Have you ever felt hopeless in your life?
And I might add, by the way, over half of us are women. So the best way to understand this strategy is actually to walk through a couple examples of how it's working out in the wild. So I'm going to give you 2 examples quickly.
Are the reasons. There are 5 reasons that 2 billion of our brothers and sisters have been pulled out of poverty since I was a kid. Number 1, globalization. Number 2, free trade. Number 3, property rights. Number 4, rule of law. Number 5, entrepreneurship. Now, what are you going to do? How are you going to express that? Where does this start? It starts here. You know, all of us in this room, we're blessed. We're blessed with people who listen to us. We're blessed with prosperity. We're blessed with leadership, right? When people hear us with a kind of unpredictable ideology.
And what's incredible is everybody is as eager and kind as they are intelligent. And I might add, by the way, over half of us are women. So the best way to understand this strategy,
who are starving and need us today, those are distractions. We need to come together around the best ways to mitigate poverty using the best tools at our disposal, and that comes only when conservatives recognize that they need liberals in their obsession with poverty, and liberals need
tools and more power to, in addition to the way that the venues are marketing the work, that the companies can actually run alongside, and the 2 campaigns can be integral, and that marketing is not a dirty word for artists. It's okay. Particularly contemporary dance companies are all struggling, apart from the larger companies. We're really struggling to get big audiences in, and we're trying to find ways to embrace more than just the dance communities to come and see work. Radio shows, TV shows are really happy for people to be on their smartphones at the same time as viewing and listening and consuming the product, whereas theatre is just straight away. It's like that. We didn't like that. We thought that was kind of high. Actually, what we need to do is these are people that we can talk to, and we had meetings with people who had given feedback, and somebody wrote an essay for us of all the things that we'd done wrong, which was fantastic because we just did them right next time. And we did.
And your actions are stemming from these deeply ingrained reflexes rooted in a need to protect yourself and your side and to defeat the enemy. So now I'd like you to imagine playing a very different role, that of the scout. So the scouts.
One trying to make.
Or Asian or Native American, or they are young or old, whether they are gay or straight, whatever their faith, men, women, Americans with disabilities, we have to keep on uniting as one team, as one people, as one nation. That's what you have taught. Most of those 20 vets taking their lives each day are not in the VA, but we know that when vets do get VA care, they're more likely to survive. So we need to get more vets connected to the VA. And when you have an urgent need for mental health care, you shouldn't have to. But as strong as you are, and nobody's stronger than our disabled vets, I know you didn't make this journey alone. You're here because of the love and support of your families and your caregivers and your neighbors and your communities and your fellow.
Up, whereas so many Americans are stalled or have fallen backwards. Real family income hasn't moved. In fact, it's below where it was in 1999 and 2000. So we do have a problem. It's a real problem because we are a.
Our Marines are the world's only truly expeditionary force. We have the world's finest Coast Guard. We have the most capable fighting force in history, and we're going to keep it that way.
The planet is one in which ideas are literalized through technology, through transformation, through all the things that mankind has done as a force of geology. So ideas matter. And so what are the ideas that you're going to spread into the world? What are you going to pay forward? What is the possibility? What are the good vibes? What are the grand visions that you are going to utter?
To find the schools that are right for you, or to get the support you need to succeed on campus, to make sure you don't get ripped off, to cap your student loans, to make sure